Are you considering a Holland America Grand Voyage or World Voyage? Then this video is for you. I just completed a segment on the 2026 Grand Voyage, and in this video I'm sharing what I learned, how these voyages are different than standard Holland America itineraries, what I wish I'd known, and how I'm preparing differently for the 2027 Grand Voyage. I'm Angie. This was my 121st cruise. I'm a travel agent and I use my personal experience and expertise to help travelers like you make great choices for their upcoming cruise vacations. If you'd like to book your next Holland America cruise with me, email Angie at tripswithangie.com and ask about the current offer for YouTube subscribers. First, what is a World Voyage or a Grand Voyage? So the World Voyage is, as it sounds, it's Holland America's world cruise. It's usually over 120 days or so. It generally begins and ends at the same US port, and you travel to several continents. A Grand Voyage is usually between 70 and 90 days, beginning and ending in the same US port, but you just focus on one particular area of the world. For instance, the 2026 Grand Voyage was Australia and New Zealand. The 2027 Grand Voyage is South America, and we're waiting to hear about the 2028 Grand Voyage. That will be announced on April 29th. Let's talk about how these voyages are different. We're going to talk about activities, entertainment, and dining. For activities, on these voyages, they bring on more people to provide enrichment activities. For instance, they bring on a bridge instructor. So at the beginning of the cruise, you can sign up for bridge lessons, whether it's beginner or intermediate. They bring on a priest so that mass can be held throughout the sailing. They'll also bring on a rabbi if it's requested. You'll have lecturers on a number of different topics. So on our sailing, we had a storyteller where she would dress up and get in character of a person from history. You may have someone with historical expertise giving lectures about a particular time period. So they want to have a lot of enrichment activities and lectures to fill those sea days as you travel around the world. They also have a robust crafts program where you sign up at the beginning. They had watercolors, drawing lessons, handicrafts. So on the sea days, there were set times where different groups would be able to do the crafts to ensure everyone who wanted to had a chance to participate. There's obviously going to be a robust trivia program. You know that from other Holland America sailings. For entertainment, they add a number of special events to the program. You may be familiar with the bar hop from other Holland America sailings. This is where you pay an extra surcharge and you get together in a big group and you literally hop from bar to bar playing different games. They have those on almost all Holland America sailings, but on the Grand Voyage, the 2026 Grand Voyage, they had 3 of them. One was themed for St. Patrick's Day, one's themed for the Orange Party. The Orange Party is another event that's on all Holland America sailings. This is why I'm wearing orange today. This is to celebrate Holland America's Dutch heritage. So that's always a lot of fun, but they amp it up a little bit more. They have special events like a Masquerade ball, a farewell ball. They even added a night in Hollywood to our sailing where they had this special event where they brought up the crew and gave them different awards like it was the Oscars. On our sailing, they added karaoke because a few guests requested it. So we had 3 nights of karaoke on our Grand Voyage. They really try to listen to what the guests want to have and try to plan those special events. They also have something called a block party, which is really fun. So they send everybody back to their cabins who wants to participate. They give the cabin stewards a couple bottles of wine. Everybody goes into their cabin and gets their wine glass and steps out, and the cabin steward comes and pours your wine, and they have appetizers come by in each of the hallways in forward, midship, and aft. On all of the decks, they assign a crew member to come and socialize and help facilitate you meeting all of your neighbors. They had 2 of those on the Grand Voyage because the 2026 Grand Voyage was split into 2 segments. I did the second segment, so they had one on the first segment and then another one on the second segment. They also had a costume party, so be sure to pack your costumes. I was tremendously impressed with the extensive costumes that a lot of people brought. One gentleman dressed up as Colonel Sanders, complete with the KFC box he had brought from home. So how do people bring enough clothes for all of these special events? Well, when you book when a Grand Voyage or World Voyage comes out, or within the first few months of the sailings being launched, you may qualify for what's called Luggage Forward. And this is a special perk where you can have a suitcase picked up at your house and it will be shipped to the ship and meet you in your cabin. And then it works the reverse on the way home. So you set your suitcase outside of the door of your cabin the last night of the cruise, it gets picked up, and in between 1 to 3 weeks, depending on where you live, it will show up at your doorstep. So that's a special perk. Now, as a travel agent, I help you sort through all of those perks and whether or not they're worth it to you and what that means for the type of cabin you should book. But again, just email me, Angie@tripswithangie.com. But that's how people bring so many things. I mean, we were walking down the hallway the last night of the cruise and some people had 4 full-size suitcases. And I'm sure one half of one of those suitcases was costumes for the costume party, and then the other half was special outfits for the Masquerade ball or the farewell ball. When it comes to the onboard musicians and World Stage, on the Grand Voyage 2026, the World Stage company did 15 shows. So 15 different shows were available. Those are the singing and dancing shows that you can see on a lot of the Holland America ships. There was a piano player, a guitar player, the Dam Band, which is the dance party band, and the dance band, which is the band that backs up all of the guest performers and the World Stage crew. One thing I was surprised to learn was that on the Grand Voyage that they didn't switch up the guitar player or the piano player during the voyage. It would be really hard to put together 3 sets a night, 6 days a week for 70 days and not have repeats. So perhaps that's something they'll consider in the future. I definitely put on my survey that I think it'd be great in the future if they could switch up the musicians. One thing the guitar player did that was exceptional was she invited one of the World Stage singers to do a set with her of his heritage. So he was from Scotland, and so together they learned and rehearsed a number of his favorite Scottish or Irish songs, and they did one set one night, and it brought everyone to tears. He's talking about the song that his grandmother would sing to him. He's talking about the song that his sister sent to him as he was getting ready to leave to go on the tour. It was an incredible set of music and I loved it so much. So I hope like on future Grand Voyages that there's going to be a lot more of that. They did do a night of music that they had all of the different musicians play with each other. Oh, I forgot to mention there also was a string trio. They had the bands play behind the World Stage singers. So they just mixed up all of the musicians for one night and it was incredible. Now I wish they had done that more, like maybe once a week had where one band or musician mixed it up with a member of the World Stage cast. That would have been so interesting and so much fun. So maybe they'll consider that for the future too. There also was dance instruction every sea day, so all different types of dances, and towards the end of the cruise she was just asking people what they wanted to learn, how they wanted to do it. It was everything from waltzes to country line dancing to how to dance in a club, which I thought was so much fun. So in summary, there are a lot of activities on board. So we talked about bridge, crafts, dance, the religious activities. There's also guest-led activities. So for instance, they set aside one of the rooms every day from 1 to 4 for anyone who wanted to play mahjong. There was a guest-led Bible study each morning. A group got together and played the ukulele. So since this was an Australia and New Zealand itinerary, one of the activities on their way to Hawaii in the first segment of the Grand Voyage was they had ukuleles people could check out and learn to play. Well, there was a group of about 20 people who really enjoyed it. So they would get together each afternoon on a sea day and practice the ukulele together. There was a knitters group that got together every morning on the sea days and knitted, or even on port days too. And what was absolutely incredible was they knitted 150 blankets for the Ronald McDonald House in San Diego. And they put them on display up in the crow's nest a couple days before we were set to disembark. And it was beautiful. The blankets were absolutely incredible. So depending on your interests, there can be a lot of things that you can participate in on the sea days and the port days if you just decide to stay on the ship. Another popular activity, of course, was pickleball. There is a basketball court on the Zaandam, which was the ship we took on the Grand Voyage, that converts to a pickleball. So they had beginners times, they had intermediate and advanced times, and they also had lessons on board. Now, if you haven't seen my full ship tour of the Zaandam, just head back to the Trips with Angie YouTube channel. I posted it last week. The World Voyages and Grand Voyages take place on these smaller, older ships because that increases the number of ports they can get to by having a smaller size. How was dining different on this cruise? Holland America has a port to plate program that they use on all of their ships that tries to bring in dishes from where you're going, from the destination, into the dining room. But this was a little bit of a step above. So they did a tremendous job sourcing local fish, especially when we were in Australia, New Zealand, and French Polynesia. They brought on local beers that you could try. They had an Australian beer tasting on board. They even brought on a local chef. He had a cooking demonstration, he had a Q&A, and then you could pay to go to a special dinner made by him in the Pinnacle Grill. And this was one of the highlights of the cruise for me, to have a local New Zealand chef come on board and prepare his version of the food he grew up with. Was absolutely incredible and one of the highlights. They also brought on famed chef Jacques Torres, the chocolatier, who has designed all different types of dessert across the Holland America line. He came on, he had 2 cooking demonstrations. The salmon dish that he created was featured on the main dining menu as one of the port to plate specials one evening. He also had a Q&A. By the way, he's hilarious. So if you have a chance to ever meet him or go to any one of his events, please go. He's so much fun. He told all kinds of great, funny stories. The head chef also did demonstrations, and then the dish he made in the demonstration would be on the main dining room menu in 1 or 2 nights from there. The macadamia crusted grouper was one of the best things I ate on board, and it was so much fun because it had been the demonstration, so you saw exactly how he made it. In the buffet, they would have special themes. A couple of my favorites was Indonesian. So a lot of the crew members are from Indonesia, so it was really neat that they were serving and introducing you to some of their own personal favorite dishes. Now, they're not quite as spicy as I think they would be in their home countries, but still, it was great to learn about these dishes and get an idea what they're like. They also had an Indian day. They had these incredible seafood extravaganzas where they had lobsters and shrimp and crab legs and mussels, all you could eat at the buffet. They had a dessert extravaganza. So they really tried to have different themes so that you didn't get too tired of having the same menus over and over. Now, having said that, at the end of the cruise, that last week of sea days, we did talk to a lot of people who were just tired of eating. They were just tired of, having cruise food. Nothing against Holland America. They were ready to go home and go back to their home favorites. Another really fun thing that the dining team did was they set up a street food market where they set up these little stands around the Lido deck featuring different countries. So it's like you were going to an American food truck or a Mexican or Italian or what they called favorites. So some of the favorite items that had been on the sailing so far. They also had a dessert station where they were making cotton candy. Oh, I forgot, another really fun activity they did was a fun fair where they set up games all around Lido and you won raffle tickets, and they gave away 60 prizes of anything from a specialty dinner for 2 in the Pinnacle Grill to the lion, which is the mascot stuffed animals, to different branded Holland America items. So they had things like beanbag toss, knock over the bottles, ring toss. So that was another really fun event that they put together. Of course, we had the equator crossing ceremony where they brought crew members out who hadn't crossed the equator yet, and they dumped stuff on them and made them kiss a fish and jump in the pool. So that happens on all of those sailings that cross the equator. What did I learn and what am I doing differently for 2027? First, I will be very hesitant to book a segment again, especially a second segment. When we joined in Sydney, it was 350 new people, 125 people had left, 350 boarded. The people who had been on since the beginning had no interest in getting to know the new people. And this was consistent. I talked to 15 other people who had gotten on to Sydney, and they all said the same thing. Everybody was into their routines, everybody had their friends, everybody had their meetups, and there just wasn't space. Now, were people kind and like said hello? Absolutely. But we just weren't part of that community that had been created over the 60 days before we joined. The other thing is that impacted our ability, the newbies' ability to join into the bridge lessons and the crafts and the drawing classes, because those have been going on for 2 months. So it's not like you can show up at segment 2, 60 days into the cruise and expect to join those activities, because you could try, but you would be behind. You would have to catch up quickly and figure some things out on your own. Another thing I would do differently in the future, I would really look for more overland opportunities. Holland America offers what they call overland options. Now this is where through Holland America, you get off in one port, you do some type of tour, and then you get back on in a different port. So you take an overnight bag off with you, they fly you somewhere or drive you somewhere, you have some type of experience, and then you come back on the ship. So for instance, in the 2027 South America Grand Voyage, there's a Galapagos option where you can get off in Peru, go see the Galapagos. You can add on Machu Picchu if you want. There's also an opportunity in Argentina to go to Iguazu Falls. So I would look more closely at the itinerary to see what those opportunities are, or what opportunities there may be for me to do it myself. For example, on the 2026 Grand Voyage to Australia and New Zealand, you could have easily gotten off and had time on your own in French Polynesia based on our schedule, because we visited 5 ports in French Polynesia. So some people got off at the first port, went and stayed, whether it was on Moorea or Bora Bora or one of even the more exotic islands, and then joined us at our last port in French Polynesia. So I'm taking a closer look at the itineraries to see where those overland opportunities may exist. Now there are some complications to that. Recommend working with a travel agent, maybe me. If you're going to do that, you need to check on visas. You need to check with Holland America to make sure customs and immigration officials will be available, especially if you're getting off in one country and getting on in a different one, and doing it yourself. So there's a couple things you need to be able to work out before you can do that on your own. The third thing I'm doing differently for 2027 is I'm doing more research into the ports. When we approached the 2026 Grand Voyage, we were basing it on our experience of a Japan cruise we took. We had the most incredible tour director. Her lectures about the ports were in-depth, they were specific, she would even give you sample itineraries. And the one thing that didn't occur to me was that she had been sailing that itinerary, I think this was their 6th sailing on that itinerary in a row. So she had built up a lot of personal on-the-ground knowledge about these ports. I didn't think about the fact that on the Grand Voyage, the person giving the lectures hasn't been there. And if they have been there, it hasn't been recently, because this is the first time on that cruise that they're going there. And for some reason, it seems like the tour directors don't talk to each other about Holland America to understand the current conditions, which I think is a little weird. So I couldn't rely on the overviews as much as I could in Japan. Now, they were lovely overviews. It told you about the island. It kind of gave you a sense of what some things were there, but not as in-depth as what we experienced on our Japan cruise. So now looking at 2027, I am looking more in depth at the individual ports, doing some of my own research, and I'm not going to rely on the lectures on board. I'm going to have some ideas and make some plans a little bit further in advance than I had in the past. The other thing we're looking at as we evaluate Grand Voyages and World Voyages moving sooner is a hop on, hop off. So in 2026, the World Cruise, which was on the Volendam, was in Sydney the same day as the Grand Voyage on the Zaandam. And so some people flip-flop ships. So they got off the Volendam and got on to the Zaandam to sail back to San Diego. Other people that were on the Zaandam got off the Zaandam and got on the Volendam to continue on the Volendam's journey around the world. So I'm gonna take a closer look at some of those key ports. So for instance, we looked at in Buenos Aires, Could we get off one and get on another? What does that look like? We'll also look at that for 2028 as we're evaluating the world cruises and the Grand Voyages there. And it doesn't even have to all be on Holland America. So just seeing what the options are as you go to different key ports around the world. Could you tweak that itinerary so it's exactly what you want? And that's exactly what I do as a travel agent, is I help you figure all that out, help you map all that out. Like, for instance, if you're looking at the 2028 World Voyage that's gonna come out on April 29th, and you're saying, hey, this segment, we've already been there and we're really not interested in going there again, I can look at that and help you figure out, like, what could you do during that time? Could you hop off and get on another cruise? Could you hop off and do a land tour and then hop back on? How would that all work? Now, you would have to take all your luggage with you, so that's a different conversation, but we can talk about all that when you email me. So those are the three big things I'm gonna do differently when I'm looking at the 2027 itinerary. One, I'm joining it from the beginning. No more hopping on after everybody has their friends. Two, I'm gonna do more research into the shore excursions to make sure that I really understand the ports and what we wanna do in the ports. Three, I'm gonna look at overland opportunities to hop off the ship and spend more time on land within South America. And then four, as I move forward into the future and we're evaluating the options for 2028, looking at those opportunities to get off on one segment, maybe do something else, maybe even get on a different cruise ship to really customize a 90 to 120 day journey that goes to the ports I really want to visit. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, if you've been on a World Voyage or a Grand Voyage and want to weigh in about what I said, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you'd like to book your next Holland America cruise with me, email Angie at tripswithangie.com. Now, here's some videos YouTube and I thought you might like.